Good evening, everybody. This is Norberto Spangaro. I am a director of the Doral Community Coalition. And today we're going to be talking about a project that is causing concerns and issues within the city, and the residents and everybody around it has an opinion, but everybody around it wants, I'm sure, wants the best for our city. We will start, and I'll introduce Rick Cora, who is the president of the Doral Community Coalition. Rick, good evening.
Good evening. How are you? Welcome, City of Doral residents. Welcome, everyone. To start off, want to emphasize that the DCC's main objective is to promote good governance and transparency. So all the information is based on facts and documents. Comments and opinions expressed are based solely on that with no political intention. Let's get started. Norberto?
Thank you, Rick. Thank you very much. We're going to go through a presentation that will be running through the timeline and everything that has been so far happening regarding these projects. So I'm gonna start going through it. If you allow me, go to slide one. The fact is that the states passed a law called the Live Local Act, SB 102. That is a law that was passed in Tallahassee, which permits high-density construction to promote affordable rentals if qualified outside the city master plan. And if a project is filed within the context of SB 102, the city's legislative power is limited and eventually can be approved a project administratively. This is a law that was passed by Tallahassee and went into effect July 1st of this year. The OASIS project, the one we're going to be talking about today, was presented well before the law was passed. And actually, an initial project was presented last year and was rejected by the prior administration. And when the administration changed, the project logically was again presented to the new mayor and the council and was given factually the green light to proceed through staff administration with changes that had happened to adapt it to SB 102, which increases the density and the capacity of the developer to develop more than what should have been eventually under the current zoning of the city of Doral. City officials, and that's our opinion, have been very careful in not making their position public. So nobody has said they approve it or they don't approve it, but certainly they gave all the support to the project, including guiding the developer to deal with public opinion, information, and access to communities that were affected directly, and even more. It is obvious and undeniable the support from city officials, including the active participation in all public and private meetings from the mayor and her advisors. Residents must be alert with the activities and the true intentions and any steps that are taken by the city at this time. And there are two very important events, and with that I will pass it to Yvette Petkovich, who will continue with the timeline. One event is the moratorium discussion that is going to happen tomorrow, July the 26th at 6 p.m. at City Hall. The second one, and this is very critical and important, is the text amendment to be approved to change the land use of the site. It's a text amendment to the land use capacity, and this is scheduled for August. With that, I'm going to pass it to Yvette Petkovich, who is going to be giving you a timeline of events and what is coming. Yvette?
Yes, of course. So moving on to the next slide. So essentially, as it relates to the timeline in this case, there's already been some mention that this particular developer has come to the city of Doral in past years to try to bring a project of this type forward. However, he really has never gotten nearly as far as he has at this particular point. As far as the timeline is concerned, I think that the logical starting point is in January of this particular year, where there is a request to meet with our mayor by the developer, essentially to discuss this particular project. The mayor ultimately gives the developer a meeting, and a meeting is had on the 31st of January of this year. Then during the month of February, there were meetings between city staff and the developer regarding the application process in order to push a project of this sort forward. And I think it's obvious that a lot of times when it comes to bringing projects of this magnitude to a city, it's always effort on the developer's part in order to learn the way the city works, learn about the process within the city, and naturally the city government has a responsibility to be part of those discussions to the extent of informing the developer of different rules and processes within the city. However, in this particular case, the project has continued to progress further, and so throughout March, April, and May, there continued to be communications between the developer and the city. In April of this year, there was a request, an application on the part of the developer that was filed regarding the text amendment. That is one of the two crucial issues that we are trying to raise awareness about right now. And that particular application was filed in April. It's basically presented through the developer's law firm. The developer has a firm that's representing them. They assist in preparing this application, and they put forth their reasons and their grounds for why they're requesting this text amendment. And in this case, what we're referring to, and a lot of the residents are already aware of this, but just to make certain that we're being as informative as possible, what the developer is asking is for the city council to make a change or to modify the zoning definition that applies to this area on 97th and 41st to add the ability to build assisted living facilities, or ALF, on that property. At the moment, that's not permissible. And so with this text amendment, that would be permissible. And again, this is one of the decisions that the city will have to make, and the city council will make in the coming weeks, that we're trying to raise awareness and urge residents to really reach out to the city and ask that they do not approve this amendment. So then in June of this year, the city has a charrette where there is it's essentially presented as an opportunity to talk about the master plan for Doral Boulevard and what it's going to look like. Naturally, this property is part of that particular plan because it's along 41st Street. And at that particular workshop, many residents attended. The workshop, again, was advertised and put out as really a discussion about what the residents want to see on 41st Street. And in fact, city officials, and I believe it was the mayor, specifically stated that there wasn't anything pending by the part of this developer at the time, because people were already aware that this project was sort of looming and had already raised concerns. But the mayor assured us that there was nothing pending before the city that essentially we needed to be concerned about. And so fast forward, in the month of June, there was a zoning workshop. At that particular workshop, Councilwoman Cabral brought up this particular issue. She brought up this Live Local Act, SB 102. She brought up multiple or several options on how to potentially address how this law is going to impact the city of Doral and have a direct impact on this particular project. I believe Councilwoman Cabral proposed or mentioned a moratorium. She may have also mentioned some other options in terms of dealing with this, but essentially the consensus on that particular day was that a moratorium wasn't anything that would be considered at that time. And largely the messaging from the city and from the city as a whole has been that the Live Local Act is incredibly limiting, and essentially it's a law that's in place, and there's nothing that the city can do about it. And so, throughout the month of June and well into July, there has been a lot of talk about this particular issue. A lot of residents have mobilized. A lot of the communities that are going to be most impacted by this particular project have been meeting collectively to figure out what can they do to encourage the city to prevent this from happening. What can they do in terms of taking legal action in the future regarding this law that supposedly is inevitable and makes this project inevitable. And so where we're at today is that a lot of residents are paying attention to this particular issue. Only recently, within the last 10 days, I believe, there's a special meeting that's been called for tomorrow, Wednesday at 6 p.m. at City Hall, where it is believed that there will be a push for a moratorium on building in the city of Doral. And I think that for the coalition, and I know for a number of residents that I have been in contact with, what's most crucial at this particular point is to ensure that irrespective of what happens with the moratorium, that we continue pressing and insisting our electeds to deny the developer's request to amend the zoning definition to permit assisted living facilities. And sort of the main reason for that is because at this point, while a moratorium might be useful to sort of delay as a delay tactic, as far as actually resolving the issue and ensuring that a project of this magnitude does not make it to the corner of 97th and 41st, it is our belief that the true focus needs to continue and maintain on denying the developer this text amendment. This is going to be voted on in August of this year, I believe August 9th. And again, while the moratorium is helpful, moratoriums can last for 6 months. They can last for longer periods of time. And really what a moratorium is just essentially a decision by the city to say, we're not going to allow this for a particular period of time. Moratoriums can also be challenged as well. And so it's really just a Band-Aid for the next couple of months, but it doesn't offer any assurances whatsoever that in fact this developer is going to abandon this project. And so one of the messages that we want to extend on today's meeting and in this presentation that we're giving is the importance of continuing to press the city council to deny the text amendment and obviously to appear tomorrow. I think the more we stay consistent and loud, but strong and professional in our voice in how we communicate with our electeds, I think that our efforts will go a long way in ensuring that this project, which is a clear sign of overdevelopment once again in the city of Doral, that we can put a stop to this. And so with that, Norberto, at this point, I believe that I am introducing Councilwoman Digna Cabral. Is that our next item on the agenda?
No, we will continue with a few more slides before we introduce. Now it will be Fernando who will cover the next part of the presentation.
Guys, Doral residents, wait, I think I'm muted. Am I muted? Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I think as Doral residents, we're all concerned about what this is going to mean for everybody else. I think everybody else affected in all the communities around. You go from Doral Estates, everybody exiting through that area, everybody at the condos at Shoma on 97th, Costa Verde, even down south is going to have effects from this. So this is not to minimize any of the effect of Costa del Sol itself, the village of Amberwood, and all of Doral Park are going to be contending with this. So I think everybody wants to know, as residents there, is how is a moratorium going to affect this OASIS project, and how could this 6-month period be utilized by the city to do something about it. So, questions are, what's going to happen during this moratorium period? What can the city be doing proactively to seek changes to somehow improve our position and improve our, protect our quality of life that we're having right now from this overdevelopment? So, why was this not considered before, when this was starting to heat up with community feedback back even as of in May? Were we looking at this application? Why didn't we consider it then? So we can get ahead of this horse. So how long could a moratorium like this be extended? If we have a game plan for action by the city council, what can be done as maybe time runs out there to extend that? Have these questions been considered from, by the city? So those are questions that we really need to get answers from tomorrow. And what type of lobbying is the city going to be doing to everybody who voted for this Senate Bill 102 that affects us so much? We need to be having meetings with all of those who voted in favor of this to see how we can support any modification that could protect our quality of life that's being affected here. Most importantly, I think residents want to see any text amendment denied to include higher density in this project, or any project, west of 87th right now is threatening. And I think the staff needs to be instructed that that's the will of the residents, and needs to be given some clear direction after listening to the residents. I think the council needs to have a proactive stance in the way that any applications get handled by the city to meet that same expectation that the residents have of what is to become of Doral. To keep your promises. Let's fight over development here. We don't need to bend over backwards and have any accommodations for higher density included in a project like this. Anything that we can do to defend Doral, let's do it. But most importantly, let's not forget, the text amendment would have the same effect as a zoning change would, because once you do that, you're basically allowing for the use of that land. Same thing as if you would rezone there and you would have other things allowed that are not allowed now. So let's not play, word games on there. This is an effect that would be similar.
Thank you, Fernando. And I want to comment with you on this, because it's very important that if the moratorium comes for 6 months or whatever, and is lifted for any reason, and as Yvette mentioned, the moratorium can be lifted by a legal action or by another meeting, who knows. If the land use change is approved in August by the council, there are some interpretations, and we're going to go over a little bit now on the 102, that then the project can be approved by administrative work. And that is an issue, because we will not have a word, and the council will have never can argue that they have never voted for this project. But they
I think that's the way, yeah. That's why it's important to give that clear instruction.
They are voting on this project now with their attitudes. And what we want, and some people have said we want a political agenda, all we want is the council to express their true feeling about this project. Make a commitment for yes or no. Then we can argue, but we are not in a position to be treated as puppets and giving us. We mentioned the charrette. The charrette was one thing; it was changed the other meeting. So we want the council, everybody in the council, to deny the land use change. That's the only thing they can do right now, besides the moratorium, which is purely temporary. Now, the 102 is very important. And actually, what Councilwoman Digna Carral has mentioned before was that hire lawyers to fight. We're already hearing that there are many cities that are starting to think about this law. And frankly, has never been a discussion about the intentions of this law. What does this law really mean? And we know that some of the officials within the city, the head of development, is pro-development. So he's supporting that. The emails that you can see in our website express very clearly, what is the position of the professional staff inside the city. There is one email that says very, I would say, expressing a lot of happiness by being able to give the developer information in about 5 minutes about a PRR request. Now, let me know. I never got a public record request answer in 5 minutes or 20 or whatever. So, but there is an important thing to follow, which is what is the true intent of the law and what is the information that we have about it, and we don't have it. But Councilwoman Digna Cabral, who I'm going to add to the stream right now, has met with the lawmakers. So Digna, we will appreciate if you can give us a word about what is your understanding and what has been the information you have received about the intent of this very important law, which we may agree or not agree, but is there. Thank you, Digna.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I actually have the opportunity to meet with our state legislator, who was the one who brought the bill. That her name is Senator Calatayud, and she actually was very. I'm very grateful that she gave me her time, and we went over the SB 102, so the Senate Bill 102, that is the Living Local Act. What I can tell you within a summary with it is that it does not give a blank check like some others has expressed or have misled some our community and other communities. So really what this bill has many areas that are very positive, especially for first-time buyers, but also gives the opportunity to accelerate the approval of some land use when it comes to home workforce. And giving just a summary of it, what the act does is that really what the proposed process of it is that they give the city administrative approval process to the developers, that they have to qualify within a 40% for workforce. So that is one of the biggest one of the most important thing for them to be able to qualify within. One of the things that I wanted to explain here is that for them to be approved for qualified development, like I said, it's 40% of the units in the proposed multifamily development must be affordable housing for at least 30 years. Additionally, mixed-use residential projects utilizing the act must set aside at least 65% of the total square footage, which must be used for the residential purposes. Notably, the act does not preempt the city, other comprehensive plan, and land development regulations. Therefore, even if a development qualifies for additional height or density under the act, or is permitted in an area, it will have otherwise been prohibited. The development must still comply with all the other city land development regulations. For example, when it comes to traffic study, the design regulations, the parking, the environmental, the flood plan standards, the buffering. So there are many checklists that they have to go through in order for them to be approved or to qualify within this law. The other thing is that, just to simplify a little bit, when it comes to the density, a municipality we cannot restrict a qualifying development below the highest density allowed on any land in the municipality where the residential development is allowed. When it comes to the height, the multifamily building height for qualifying development may not be restricted below the highest currently allowed height for commercial or residential development located in ours or within the jurisdiction within 1 mile of the proposed development, or 3 stories, whatever will be higher. The use allow multifamily, rental, or mixed-use residential uses in commercial, industrial, or mixed-use zone without zoning or land use change, especially exception and conditional use approval, variance, or comprehensive plan amendment. So one of the things that the state Senate was explaining to me is that the real intent for this bill was to promote and motivate developers to develop in areas that were abandoned, like industrial areas, land that was not utilized. So the intent of this bill was really that. My concern is that some municipalities are trying to use this as a camouflage and make changes on the text amendment. So my concern for our city is something that, as me representing our city, I will make sure that we will not make changes on the tax amendment, because by making those changes, then will be facilitate for this type of construction or this type of qualifications. But what I can assure you is that I'm going to make sure that all those checklists will be met if this developer will apply and this developer will qualify within the process. The other thing is that I know that Yvette was talking the last time when I proposed for us to have an overview, aside from our city attorney, when it comes to the SB 102. I did not propose a moratorium because I do understand that when it's a state law, it goes, you cannot just go and put a moratorium with it, but that we can sit down and we can have a comprehensive plan in order for us to protect overdevelopment and to protect our city and our residents.
Thank you, Digna. It is very obvious to me that this project changes the landscape, changes the master plan of the city dramatically. And I don't think, as you have just mentioned in your talks with Clara Youth, that it is not the intention of the law. The intention of the law is to lower the rentals. Correct. And interesting enough, then comes in, which is very, of course, developers want to develop and want to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that. On the contrary, if they have the rights, they should do it. Now we have this issue of the text amendment, which brings in, interesting enough, when you see a young attorney talking about, wanting her parents or grandparents to come to a assisted living facility in Doral, it sounds like a marketing speech, because usually assisted developments are located in places where they have easy access for ambulances and everything else, and they use land that is less expensive. So the assisted living is basically part of a business plan of our intention to overdevelopment. But also the land, text amendment try to make that land uh, available for assisted living. There are seven, I think it's seven or maybe 8 or 9, I don't know how many exactly, other uh, lands in Doral that are already authorized for assisted living. So
Yes, I
the
actually,
intention is not. And let me finish.
yes.
If Doral needs, with some information, and I don't know how you can, I research all the internet, and there is nowhere any need that is expressed with numbers, information, or maybe a survey that Doral needs assisted living facility in 97th Street, in 97th Avenue and 41st Street. But so if we need assisted living in the city, should be looking where it should promote it, even with city money if necessary, in the locations that are already authorized. So that's we are all very concerned about is behind this text amendment, as Dignas has mentioned, Yvette mentioned, and Fernando mentioned. So we got to be extremely careful. We want is clarity. We want transparency. If there are people who think the master plan of the city of Doral has to change dramatically and make the 41st Street corridor a huge mixed use development, let's put it on the table. Let's discuss it. The master plan was done with a lot of work, a lot of intention. What we have seen in the last years of the prior, not the prior administration, the previous administration, is there were a lot of changing in zoning that changed the landscape of the scape of the city, the scope of the city, how it was created with 87 Avenue East and so on and so forth, dramatically. That's why we have such ugly project in 8800 40 of 36th Street, which was approved. So when you start changing things piecemeal basis, you destroy the concept of full planning. If the council of people in the professional staff of the city want to change the master plan of the city, present it. Let's debate it. That's democracy. That's transparency. Do it, but don't try to trick us. We are not we are not that stupid. And I'm going to say with those words, okay, we are not that stupid. So put it on the table and we will be delighted to debate it openly, as every citizen will be delighted to do so. So that's our view and that's our thought. And I would really like, if anybody else has anything to say, want to add to this, or please feel free to do so.
Well, what I wanted to say is that when the resident asked me why I decided to run for council, that was the reason. On 2016, when I saw that there were so many rezoning of so many areas, land use in our city, I decided then to be part of the solution. Because for me, is that either I move or I will run and be part of the council and make sure that those approval will not keep moving forward like it was done by that time. Like you said, there's a master plan, and I wanted to explain that a master plan, it's when a city comes together, it has different pieces. It's not just the council that were the one who funded the city that created the master plan. One, the master plan is being revised every certain amount of years to be able to serve better the community. But when it comes to that, it's a conjunction of we have the school board, we have the county, we have different other entities that are part of the master plan. The reason of this is because we don't want to be doing or approving construction of, for example, industrial near a zone that is for schools. So we want those schools to be in areas where it's more residential. So it will be a better flow of the traffic. That where is going to be the police station, where is going to be our fire department. We don't want a fire department just to be away from where we have more residential. That for God, if there's a fire in one of the houses, right away they will be able to serve. So a master plan has different pieces. And sometimes when we come from our country, we forget that this is the way that the system works, and that the council has only one part of that puzzle. We're just part of one puzzle. We don't have jurisdiction when it comes to the school board, and we don't have jurisdiction to many other areas where the county is the one in charge. But we all work together, and we try to be able to maintain the harmony in order for us to be able to keep serving our community in the best way. So this is really something that is very close to me and very important to me. And I listen and I hear my constituents because I wanted to make sure that we will be able to keep our comprehensive master plan. But at the same time, like you said, Roberto, also, and like Fernando said, we do understand that when you purchase a land, you have the right to also do construction. I mean, if the people that bought the land were, I, for example, on my property where I decided to live, if they wouldn't be able to develop it, I wouldn't be able to move to the city of Doral. So we do understand that. And we are also here to sit down with them and being able to have a conversation where we'll be able to compromise and work together for the well-being of the entire community.
Exactly. And I think the examples have been many. And we are here just to make sure that everybody can say what they think, but also that this is a community that continues to work together, both government and residents, for the best of our community, nothing else. So I really appreciate it. Tomorrow we had a meeting at 6 p.m. At the council uh, chambers. Will be there. Everybody will be there. As we said, tomorrow maybe a moratorium, may not be. The moratorium is, as Yvette has expressed, a temporary thing, doesn't resolve any problem. And it might be good, might be bad, might be good if there are eventual possibilities of changes in 102. But there is an intent eventually of the moratorium be something that protects some other actions that may happen. We had to be attentive to what it says here in this charge. We want the council not approving the land use change. That will change the project and puts us again in the driver's seat, and not us, the city of Doral, in the driving seat to maneuver and manage and negotiate any future development. Thank you very much for joining. We'll appreciate it, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.